All right, good afternoon. My name is Michael Bazyler. I'm a professor of international law here at Fowler School of Law and Chapman University. Some of you are listening on Zoom. Many of you are here in person. I'm very, very glad to see the students that are here. For those of you that are in my class, we're in this course, so we can stay here. And if our speakers want to continue the discussion, they can, but we're going to do but a hard stop around 1:05. Okay. I just want to do a brief history. In October 1943, in the midst of World War II, the three powers, the Soviet Union, the UK, and the United States, issued what is called the Moscow Declaration. And the Moscow Declaration basically said that those individuals involved in war crimes, in aggression and atrocities will be put on trial after the war. That came true on November 1945 with the creation in Germany, occupied Germany, of the International Military Tribunal, where the 22 leading Nazis that were still alive were put on trial. And the Nuremberg legacy continues to this very day. On October 1st, the judgment of the Nuremberg Tribunal came out. And the supreme crime that the tribunal found to be is the crime of aggression, the beginning of an aggressive war. And for those of us in the international law world are looking at this, see that as the reality. And we find the parallels to what Nazi Germany did. What is so strange is that if you look at Russian television, they will tell you exactly the same thing. But they will tell you what is going on as they're freeing Ukraine, okay, from the Nazis. So it's a surreal world. We have here today two speakers. They're going to give us a explanation of what they're seeing. And the legal landscape. Szymon Gostyski is the managing partner of Gostyski and Partners in Krakow, Poland. And Yarema Kondratyuk is the managing partner of Kodary, which is a law firm in Lviv, in the Western Ukraine. And Yarema is here now in Krakow with Szymon. And they're speaking to us, in one sense, from ground zero. So let me go ahead and yield the floor to you gentlemen, and I will start. If people in the audience could help me welcome our two speakers.
Thank you for the invitation. My name is Szymon Gostyski, and I'm a lawyer here in Krakow. With me is Yarema, who is, due to the situation, is in a sense in a unique situation because he can travel in and out of Ukraine. And is partially working from Krakow and partially working from his law firm in Lviv. We thought, and we haven't really structured this in any way, that we want to give you perhaps sort of do it in three parts. First of all, we'll tell you what we see on the streets, what's happening. This is not, legal discussion. This is basically how life has changed or how life goes and what we see on the streets. Second part would be sort of what has changed generally in law as a legal framework due to the situation. And if time permits, we can explain and tell you a little bit about the inquiries or some of the cases that where we're getting emails from clients, prospective clients, what has changed, and some of the cases that we're seeing and we're hearing about due to the situation. So with that, I'll give it over to Yarema, who can tell you a little bit about the reality of living in Ukraine these days. And Lviv, and not only Lviv. I know it's going to be very difficult to explain it in only a few minutes, but we'll try and do our best. Yarema?
Hello, my name is Yarema Kondratyuk. managing partner of Kondratyuk Partners law firm. It's my great pleasure to participate in this event today. I guess you all have an access to world media, which, being fair, are bringing relevant information what's happening in Ukraine. Of course, it's difficult to bring the whole scale of the situation. A, because it's developing quite fast. B, because it's very different depending on the exact territory of Ukraine. We are 45 million Ukrainians, a big part of whom unfortunately have already left. More than 25% have left their homes, and almost 8% already have left the country. Things what happening at the moment in Ukraine, we don't call a beginning of the war. So the first thing I would like to stress that from the point of view of Ukrainians and from the point of view of Ukrainian law, 24th of February 2022, what happened was a full-scale invasion of the aggressor. Russia, according to Ukrainian legislation, was recognized as aggressor, and the war started by Russia against Ukraine was recognized in 2015. During that time, we considered ourselves being in war process. We've gone through different periods of this war, and during last years, couple years, 6-7 years, it was in mind of people a war for major part being still on a distance. But during last few weeks, it came to a mind, heart, and life of every person staying in Ukraine, doesn't matter of a nationality, even citizenship, and other matters. The actual situation on the streets, as Szymon says, it very differs depending where those streets are. At the moment, we have a couple cities which are under siege. I would say under medieval practice of siege, where the city is cut it from the supplies, no electricity, people between the bombing are cooking on the fires which they can make from the wood they can gather. Doing this sometimes and quite often on the basements or other places they find shelter. Unfortunately, people on other territories still some territories have an understanding the war is still far away, but this was changed during last couple of weeks, where even in my my hometown Lviv, the rocket attack with the new type of arms have been conducted. So when we are talking with you right now, it started 20 minutes ago, approximately. The whole territory of Ukraine is announced as a territory of air alarm. And unfortunately, we don't know what city, what object, what village would be the next target. In compare to events of 8 years ago, Ukraine and world have moved on a bit on the informational media preparation. So at the moment, there are special channels in the messengers, TVs, which can provide more or less up-to-date information on the events and happenings in the Ukraine. Sorry. Sometimes it's even a problem. We have a request from our Ministry of Defense to all people at the places to not be upfront the event, meaning that sometimes when bombing happens and some objects are destroyed, we can find it immediately in the messengers, social webs, and others. And this actually helps an aggressor to identify, was it successful, or how successful it was, or was it unsuccessful. So for you to have a general understanding about what's happening in Ukraine, there are like still three types of territories. One which is under temporary occupation already, some long time ago, some day to day, so from couple weeks or from couple days. There are some which are close to their being under, let us say, higher danger than others. And there are some territories, mostly in Western Ukraine, what situation is from the point of view of the army danger or army invasion danger on foot being stable. But there is no safe place from the point of view of the air. Having said that, it's also needed to be noted that those territories which are more or less safe or comparatively safe from the on-foot aggression, those territories feel serious influence of hundred thousands of refugees, of internal refugees, and the infrastructure of those towns and cities in a true fact is not ready for that. The population of Lviv, again my hometown, because this is the closest example, and to be recognized like one of the most safest places at the moment, have already a temporary increase for more than 50%. Of course, a lot of refugees have left Ukraine, most of them to Poland. It's around 2 million at the moment, I would say, but Szymon will tell more about that. We, as Ukrainian, of course, appreciate a lot support of our main partners at the moment, which we do have a clear understanding of risks they are taking under providing this assistance, not only with accepting refugees, but also providing very needed, sometimes in time, sometimes not, but assistance for defense purposes. With this respect, of course, the US at the first place, UK, our other partners, and we do understand that the main hub of logistic of providing this assistance is Poland. So being endangered from this point of view, so we have a clear understanding that it's not cost-free for our partners. So we appreciate this assistance and help. And without this support, definitely we would not talk about future possibilities of winning or stopping the aggression, which we do believe will happen soon. To not take too long time, I'm inviting you for any kind of question. I would be ready to answer and to let my colleague have also a couple of words about the situation in Poland and the world.
Okay, so from perspective of Poland, and this touches with and goes in connection to what Yarema said. Obviously, there is. We are fortunate that there is no war going on in Poland. We're a neighboring country. Bombs have exploded as close as about 10 miles, I think, to the Polish border. But for now, they're not crossing the Polish border. Poland, unlike Ukraine, is a member of not only the European Union, which from military perspective is very less important, but we are a country that's it's a member of NATO. And we hope that this is something that gives us a greater protection to what Ukraine, to the situation in Ukraine. Having said this, we don't know. We don't know. Poland has become really, in a sense, a hub between the West and Ukraine. If I'm asked, how the reality has changed in Krakow and what I see on the streets, I see a lot of people who have come to my hometown, Krakow, from Ukraine. We see a lot of cars with Ukrainian license plates. If I go out of the office where we're sitting on the street, probably every fifth, sixth car has a Ukrainian license plate. We see a lot of women with children just strolling around town. We hear Ukrainian or Russian language spoken every day, in the bakery, in restaurants and playgrounds and places. So this is reality. I've checked today the numbers, and as a result of the current situation, because as Yarema explained, from a Ukrainian perspective, the war has been going on since 2015. Nothing has, from a legal perspective, changed on the 24th of February. The war, which was going on, came into a different phase. But obviously, 24th of February, from our perspective, is a moment where this huge wave of refugees came to the Polish-Ukrainian border. About 3.5 million people have left Ukraine. About 2.1 million people have found shelter in Poland as of today. The number is growing by 30 to 35,000 people every day. Just to kind of bring it in perspective, Poland is a country of about 38 million people. That's roughly the population of the state of California. California has 39.5 million population, 35.9 million people. So you can imagine how many people would see on the streets if suddenly within 3 to 4 weeks, about over 2 million people suddenly came into California. In Krakow, where we are right now, it's a city of about 800,000 people. We have over 100,000 Ukrainians currently who came within the last about 4 weeks. So the population of Krakow rose by about 15% just due to the situation. So I have to say there is a huge willingness of everyday people in Poland to welcome and help these people. These are mostly women and children, very few men, due to the fact that, as you may know, men between the age 18 to 65 generally are not allowed to travel outside of Ukraine.
60 for the moment.
60, okay, with certain exceptions. And actually, Yarema is here because he falls into one of those categories where he can travel back and forth. But generally, it's mostly women and children. And there is a huge willingness on behalf of the Polish people to welcome these people. And there is everyday people are welcoming total strangers under the roof. We've heard many stories of people who just went to the train station here in Krakow, because most of these refugees come by trains. And they just grab somebody by hand and they say, "You're coming with me, and bring your children, and you're gonna stay with me." So these situations happen every day here. Obviously, the city of Krakow and the government has organized shelters and special towns. So in Krakow, I think 2 shopping malls have been transformed into places where people can find shelters. Some auditoriums and types of places have been prepared.
Special volunteers.
Yes, there are a lot of volunteers that are helping to organize this, and basic needs have to be fulfilled. A lot of these people come here from far away with no money. They need food. They often need clothing. Basic needs. So people have really stood up to the plate, as you say, and are doing all the best we can to welcome these people here. And I'm sure, there are a lot of problems, and problems will come actually with the time, because even though there is a huge willingness to help, question is, in 6 months, in a year, will we be able to manage the situation? I don't know. We as a country don't have much experience with handling and managing any migration crisis. We haven't been faced in a situation like this. So it is a challenge. So that's one side. So if you ask me what has changed or how you see this every day on the streets of Krakow, if you go out, we're a tourist city, a tourist town. We see a lot of people just walking around, mostly I say women and children, but almost like they don't have a purpose. They don't go to a museum. They don't go to a restaurant. They're not having to visit the royal castle that we have here. They don't go to see, I don't know, an altar in a church. They're just walking around. It's actually beautiful weather here since a few weeks. So you see a lot of people and just on the street enjoying the kindergarten, enjoying the weather. But you see that, there's a family, but there's no men, and so on. So that has changed. On the other hand, Poland has become a hub for humanitarian aid and also military help. Going on the highway, from time to time, you will see a convoy of trucks, military trucks with no license plates, no insignia, nothing whatsoever. We don't know where these trucks are coming from. We're guessing where they're heading. They're heading east. What they're bringing, we don't know. There is a large number of foreign troops that have come to Poland, also to give us Poles a sense of security. There is, if you go out on the streets, every day I see U.S. soldiers on the streets, just walking around, and we're very happy to see them here. I think most of them are from the 82nd Airborne Division, I think from Maryland. They're just, we see them every day on the streets. It's something that we haven't been seeing before. So all of this is happening on the street, and obviously we feel the tension. If you listen to the radio here, every 15 minutes, there is almost a live report of what's going on in Ukraine. I went on a brief visit to Austria. It's very different if you listen to news there. Yes, it's the war is a topic there, obviously, like probably everywhere in the world, but it's not like you have almost live updates from the front. It's mostly about war protests against the war, against the situation in Vienna and Graz and so on. But it's completely different than you see on the streets in Poland. You don't see the refugees there. You don't see you don't see the cars with Ukrainian license plates and so on and so on. So that's the reality of Polish streets and what we're seeing, especially here in Krakow. And with that, maybe we'll come to the topic, what has changed in terms of a legal framework after this new phase of war against Ukraine. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the legal efforts and the new bills that are being passed in Ukraine?
Well, we have entered, I would call it, lawmaking turbulence during past weeks. At the first place, of course, the war time was announced and proclaimed in Ukraine since 24th of February, and it was prolonged for the moment till 25th of April, with, of course, our expectations under the need would be prolonged further. This implements new norms and new rules as for the daily life of people, as for the state authority functioning, touching every person, every company, every entity, and organization in Ukraine. At first place, all the administrations, civil administrations, have been replaced by the war administrations. In Ukraine, we have 25 regions, literally saying in personalities, not a lot have changed in the management of these regions, but all of them have changed their status to a war administrations. In the wartime, not only in Ukraine, it's a practice of other countries, government receives the power to hold certain human rights and freedoms. For example, quite often in most of the territory of Ukraine, the police time is introduced. That would simply mean that defining from what to what time you are able to be on the street and what time you should be at home or shelter. Usually in the most territory of Ukraine, this is from 6 in the morning till 10 in the evening. Sometimes in the cities and places of big fights or dangers, government is introducing 1.5 or 2 days police time, which means only with the special document or being a special service member or an army person, you can be on the streets. Quite often in those cities, the announcement is, if you are on the street without the special permit or without the special status, you are recognized as the spy or as the diversion group member. The problem is that it's not only the question of army and food attacks and bombing. A lot of special groups, where, as we find out right now, were implemented sometime before the active phase of aggression through different territories of Ukraine, providing destabilization and sometimes even attacking special objects or important places. The second very important thing what happened is that the Chamber of Commerce of Ukraine, the institute which is defining the grounds for force majeure, have announced a general force majeure in Ukraine for the whole territory of Ukraine for the whole period of the army time. Usually in this situation, any entity or person would have to apply for a special confirmation. Now it's announced for the whole territory. This is with concern to a business or individual relationship. The whole country is under force majeure condition at the moment. Touching in this situation, of course, the law issues, I cannot avoid saying that if during this 8 years war period in Ukraine, it grounds for identifying and proclaiming that the war crimes happening had an exceptional and very localized character. Now we can state that on the whole territory of the actual full-scale military invasion of Russian Federation to Ukraine, the following actions, which are, under our estimation, is not only to be qualified as a war crimes happening: attacks on civilian areas, definitely identified civilian areas, targeting humanitarian corridors. This is a huge problem where the sieged cities and other territories are being left without any possibilities of food, water, other necessary things for life support. A special so-called humanitarian corridors are agreed with the aggressor army, but unfortunately, quite often, those humanitarian corridors are attacked. Another very dangerous and legally forbidden action is army targeting the nuclear power plants. This brings a danger not only for Ukraine, but the whole world. And unfortunately, we are at the moment in front of two of such inactions still in process. Use of cluster munition, thermobaric weapons, and not only other weapons which are forbidden by not only Geneva but also other different conventions. And at the moment, Ukraine State Attorney Office and police are receiving reporting on the multiple facts, actually I would say becoming a common fact of looting at the places where the aggressor's army is coming. A lot of cases are already, until certain level, already even documented, the cases of sexual violence. The problem at the moment is that documenting and properly registering such an actions, which are definitely under identification of war crimes, is very complicated. And the full scale of things which have happened during this week's happening at the moment, every minute, and most probably will continue. The full scale understanding of the full scale of the war crimes, we will know only seriously afterwards. So we are, as lawyers in Ukraine, are trying to bring information to the individuals, also to businesses, that it's very important having a possibility, in case such possibility, at least minimal possibility exists, fixating of such an illegal actions on whatever possible means, making videos, photos, involving at least 1-2 witnesses in such, of course, difficult situation under bombing or under other forms of attack. It's of course not the priority for people to do that. So unfortunately, from legal perspective, we understand that a lot of a big part of these cases won't be documented on the proper level. If we talk about further legal developments, not directly on the regulations for wartime and other person, one important thing is, of course, which Szymon have touched, is the general mobilization. In Ukraine, we have 3 phases of mobilization. In a true fact, we have 4, but we expect we won't be on the stage 4 ever, because this is the general citizenship mobilization, where every person who could stand would be mobilized, which means would be involved into the army actions. Now we are on the 2nd phase. With this respect, also a right of a person to travel or to choose the place of live was limited. There are certain, especially for men between the age 18 and 60, there are some exclusions. There are 5 main exclusions of this rule. For example, my example is I'm not involved in any intelligence services or something. something like that I have a possibility to travel. I'm a father of 3 kids who are not yet 18. So for those who have under their care 3 and more kids under 18, have a temporary possibility to leave the country, of course, being back. So at the moment, my example is I'm traveling then back using this possibility. Continuing about the limitations, what have brought the wartime to Ukraine, they also have touched the business. At first, this is the foreign currency regulation. There are strict regulation. Unfortunately, there are very exclusive issues where you can buy and send abroad the foreign currency at the moment. But also it concerns a possible, not on the active phase right now, but already happening requisition, which means that we are talking mainly transport right now, but goods, assets belonging to the individuals or companies at the first place, can be well, yes, on the payable basis, but the compensation after war, or they will have it back, or in the same condition, or state will have to compensate it. Yes, of course, very urgent laws were accepted on the ground of obtaining the assistance, grants, and loans from our partners and from the World Bank and other IMF and other authorities. But also Ukraine is not standing just with limitations. And on 15th of March, a certain list of laws have been accepted for simplifying a business life, because Ukraine is standing right now in the situation where on the territories where business is possible, it is very, very important to keep economy alive. My specialization is a business law, so a lot of new practices for me are coming, and to Szymon too at the moment, but I can bring to your information that in Western Ukraine, a lot of companies, including foreign investment companies in production and services, are continuing their activity. And it's very important for them that Ukrainian government is simplifying and supporting such an activity. I can bring some names which can tell you something or not. For example, Japanese big corporation Fujikura, which part of Fujikura Automotive is still continuing activities in Lviv region, but not only. Bosch group having activities close to the border is continuing, and others. So just a brief update for you to understand that Ukrainian government and parliament are quite active at the moment. On the 15th of March, there was a new law implemented on the simplifying taxes, simplifying to, I would say, to the most possible. We, in general, we have quite a complicated tax scheme. It's more French scheme. It's nothing to do with the US simple scheme. It's VAT, profit tax, and others. It was simplified to a 2% for a big part of business, with the certain limitation, of course, 10 billion hryvnias to 2% sales tax, which is a revolution for Ukraine, without paying VAT and other taxes. VAT for gasoline, for example, was decreased from 20 to 7%. Exemption from personal income tax for victims of Russian Federation military aggression, which would mean on those territories, there is no personal tax at the moment. Exception of consumers from liability to the lender to late execution of obligation under consumer loan agreements. This is quite a brave but needed and immediate step. Mortgage regulations were also implemented as certain changes for the war period time. And of course, during the material law period, within 3 months after its termination, fines and penalties on single social contributions and other payments are hanged. From 6, Ukraine was a quite regulated in the business area country, and we have more than 600 special permits and licenses for the activity. 15th of March, which will come in due 1st of April, from 600 permits, it was cut down to 20. So 95 of permits which are left are transferred also to a so-called declarative electronic form. You don't need to obtain any paper. You just apply electronically, and you will receive it. Another very important step is Ukraine has legalized the crypto sector. Till that time, it was not regulated at all in Ukraine. Now we have a full-scale regulation, and Ukraine has accepted this. A lot of new regulations which have a temporary character for the time of material law in the labor relations, which have simplified life as for the labor, as for the employees, as for the employers. The list is longer, but I will save our time just to bring you a general situation, how it is with the practicing law in Ukraine right now. Till yesterday, 99% of state registries for any kind of deeds, activities, company registration changes to the registers were simply blocked, not because they were hacked, they were blocked because we have already an experience that in 2014, when the aggression started, a lot of frauding actions have been conducted using notaries and state registries who were under occupied territories. Yesterday, 3 of 18 registered were open, and but with very limited activity. But we expect that life will slowly stabilize and go back to at least a sort of normal, not only with the daily life, but also with the legal regulation and the business activity life. Although we understand the priority is different at the moment, and the lives of our citizens, which unfortunately the death is of children and women and men are growing with every day, is a priority there. But we also do understand we need to keep country alive, and we need to give a chance for afterwards fast rebuild.
All right. Well, it's very difficult to cover all of these changes in a short period of time. I looked at the list that Yarema had prepared, and it's just a huge number of many things that have been put in place over a short period of time. But I think it gave you sort of a nice overview how many things have changed in Ukraine.
Just in a few weeks.
In a very short period of time.
Usually it takes years or months at least.
In Poland, due to the current situation, especially a huge number of people that have come through the Polish-Ukrainian border, the Polish law has enacted on the 12th of March, but it's interesting because from a legal sort of, for lawyers, some information that this law, even though it was passed on the 12th of March, has a retroactive effect as of 24th of February, when this, as you would say, new phase of aggression has started. There's a special bill which is aimed at helping all of these people who come from Ukraine to Poland. Essentially, currently, and I think Yarema can confirm this because you've come through the border a couple of times in the past since 24th of February. In order to travel into Poland, you don't need a passport. Any form of identification is okay. So
as exception for that period.
yes. So normally, obviously, traveling into Poland, being Ukrainian, you had to have a passport, biometric passport plus a visa. Now you don't need a visa, you don't need a passport. Any document which identifies you is sufficient to cross the border. And as a result, the big question is, what should we do? How should we go about? So basically, this new law basically says everybody who has crossed the border as of 24th of February is granted automatic legal stay in Poland for the period of next 18 months. Every person in that situation is allowed to work here legally without obtaining a special work permit. Any person will have free access to our public healthcare system. All of these people will have free, unrestricted access to our educational system. People will receive Polish PESEL numbers. That's the equivalent of a US Social Security number. This is actually now an ongoing process because these 2.1 million people have to receive these social, let's say, equivalent of US Social Security numbers in order to be able, just for purposes of going into a hospital or an institution, educational institution, they will have to give that number. But basically, our institutions are doing all the best to process as many people as they can on a daily basis for them to obtain these numbers. All of these people have access to our social security benefits. So, for example, in Poland, there are monthly payments for people with at least 2 minor children. These people will also receive, these mothers will be able to receive these benefits. There are other things that, because this new law is long and it touches very different situations. For example, obviously what happened is many people with diplomas from higher education or certificates from universities have come here. So we generally are recognizing the credentials. So if you are a law professor and you come here, you will be recognized as a law professor. Credentials will be recognized. I think from a perspective, sort of a practical perspective, the most important things is how do we, and whether we can employ doctors or nurses or dentists coming from Ukraine. Why? Because as you know, there is a pandemic going on. Our healthcare system is already stretched to the max, and suddenly it needs to take care of all of these people who have come into the country. Many of them, there is a language barrier. So being able to have Ukrainian doctors, nurses, dentists working alongside Polish doctors is obviously something that would be of great benefit. But then, there is an issue of recognizing foreign diplomas, certificates, and so on, so on. So basically, as long as an Ukrainian doctor fulfills whatever credentials are required for a Polish doctor to practice in a special area, that will be recognized, and he will be able, or she will be able, to practice here. And there are many things like this in the law, but this is sort of the most important thing we have done. So basically have recognized that these people will stay here legally, will work here legally, and will give them access to any public institution that we have, whether we can, on a basis which is equal to what any Polish citizen is enjoying. For now, it's being done for 18 months. We don't know how the situation will develop, but for now, this is the perspective that there is.
What I will just simply add to this, Szymon, that according to this law, this 18-month period, for this 18 months period, person don't have to apply for refugee protection. It's called temporary protection, and this is very important from the point of view of for this 2 million, because a bigger part of them, they are not ready yet to recognize themselves as refugees.
Mhm.
So we are really grateful for this solution of the Polish government, which is grounded actually on the European decree, that this is a temporary legal protection without, as a must, having a person to identify that he is a refugee or she.
Michael, I'm looking at the clock. It's well, it's 10 minutes before, I think, 1 where you are. It's 10 minutes before 9 p.m. where we are. And we were wondering if this is a good time to take some questions.
Yes, that would be good. There was one question in the chat, which I think all of us are asking. What can we as individuals in the United States, here in California, do right now?
Okay.
Well,
I think, and you know, I let Yarema also, from our perspective, what you can do is, first of all, support the Ukraine however you can. If you have the financial means, there are certain institutions where you can contribute money and help. Charitable institutions, and you know, there is a huge list. I mean, there of them.
we can actually provide them. There are Ukrainian National Bank have even created a special accounts in different currencies for the support. But we also understand that every company individual can have its own thoughts and ideas about where the donation should be directed. So you can direct it in 3 categories: direct assistance for the Ukrainian army, assistance on the internal refugees for the medical and other purposes, and the third one is assistance for the abroad refugees. So of course, the financial assistance is a possibility to do in whatever amount or form it is possible. I'm hardly a time going back from Poland with a not full car. My car is always full with humanitarian help when I cross the border. And of course, a lot of people are organizing and also involved in that. There's all the time in goods. For example, last time I was coming to Poland, well, it's a bit bigger car, was full of blood stopping systems, which have been sent to Poland from US, because in Poland it's already quite difficult to buy these. You need to wait 2, 4, even sometimes 6 weeks for that. And of course, the second or first, I would say first one, of course, if you are a person active in the social media, if you are a person having wider contacts, your position, declaring your position, bringing attention to this strategy is also of a good and a big help to Ukraine at the moment. Unfortunately, although I think we are absolutely in different situation to 8 years ago, it's a bit early to say that the media war is won. So every word, every support word, every explanation, anything you heard from us at the moment, which we can assure you we can rely on, spreading this between your contacts or even other possibilities, it's of a great help for Ukraine at the moment.
One of the things that we hear is, obviously many American companies, many European companies have stopped doing business in Russia. do
But
we
some
now, should we as individuals focus on the companies that are still in Russia? For instance, as an example, McDonald's is closed, but Subway is open. Should we contact Subway and let them know that we don't like that? Marriott Hotels is open. Is this something you think that would be helpful?
Absolutely, and I would say more that we in Ukraine society is creating these campaigns immediately, and some of them are successful. So some of the companies, for example, Coca-Cola, Pepsi have joined this initiative almost from the beginning, but Coca-Cola did it afterwards, only after analysis of the society reaction, including other markets. So this is also a very important, a position of the society, a citizen's position to a business. We in Ukraine have such called initiative, business on blood. Yeah? Unfortunately, it is so because every penny of a tax in Russian Federation right now is coming directly to arm the army, which is killing innocent civil people in Ukraine at the moment.
Plus, I think apart from this effect that you're actually sending money to somebody who's using this to build tanks and airplanes, Russia has basically closed itself off to foreign media. So an average Russian hears and sees and believes in what they're seeing in TV, and they're being told everything is going as planned, there is no war, normal life. But if they see that there is something going on around me because all of these shops are closing and companies seem to be pulling out, maybe that will make them think that perhaps there is something going on out there.
Another question that was asked, and are there any specific organizations that you would recommend that we individuals contact, especially ones that are trying to help women and children, that are in Poland or fleeing internal refugees in Ukraine?
To save our time, we can send you the links.
Please.
Contacts after we
Yes.
That would be great. That would be great.
Obviously, as you know, there are many organizations, UNHCR and so on. I've received some email offering help, and some of the things I've heard is, I can send money to these organizations, but they're gonna probably actually send 60% of the money to those who are in need and keep 40% of us administrative fees. So yes, there is the drawback. Actually, there is also a charity that's run by Sylvia, as you know, my business partner, and we have contributed money to directly to some institutions who are helping orphan children who are brought from Ukraine to institutions here. And for this gentleman who offered $25,000 US, we assured him that it's going to be 1-to-1, and everything that he sends will be put to actually help those orphan children. It will go directly to the institutions, no administrative fees. So, but that's something on a very small scale. But there are organizations out there that are reliable, and Yarema will share, some links and information with you, Michael, and you can perhaps spread the word.
Please, I will. And let's put that organization that your partner Sylvia created on top of the list, because obviously that's the one that I would like to contribute. It's 1 o'clock now. Do you have a few minutes that I could ask the audience here if there's any questions, or we can stop? It's the time.
We're available here.
Okay. All right. Any questions? I will ask the question. How do you think this will end? And how will Europe, and how will Poland, and how will Ukraine be after this?
Well, unfortunately, not only in my, but in understanding of a lot of people in Ukraine. Whatever other solution, accepting total change, not only of personal government in Russia, but also the system, will be not the end, will be a temporary solution. Which would mean that we will not have a surety that it won't repeat a year after, or 2 years after, or 3 years after. Will it end, and when will it end with this? It's very difficult to say. One thing is clear. There are a couple versions of further development, unfortunately, including the next World War, or I would say an active phase of a World War, which we all hope and expect would not happen. But one thing for sure, what's happening right now, it's beginning of the change of the world's order. Security order, A, international policy order, B, and economy. It's difficult to predict what we will find, all of us, the world, where we will find ourselves in a couple of years, but it's definitely that it will be something seriously different from what we have right now. Hoping still on the same grounds of principles, human rights, international relationship, but most probably we will end up in a bit different structure and in a bit different warranties and wage system. From the tactical point of view, version A, we can have a bigger repeat of 2014 events, where Crimea was temporarily occupied and some territories on the east were occupied, and we will have still floating swamp of such kind, which means the part of Ukraine will be under Russian control, proclaimed maybe not even Russian, but by the fact, yes. And Ukraine will struggle further in this situation. So-called frozen conflict, as we know from previous conflicts. Certain, unfortunately, chance is that it won't be a frozen conflict, that Ukraine will be functional and maybe even in EU, but with the by fact much smaller controlled territory. And of course, the third version is, which we believe in, and it gives us the actual situation, the actual bravery fighting of our people for the independence and for the world's principles, civilized world's principles, that we will manage to win this war and be back in our sovereign territory borders, which would include an East and Crimea.
Simon, anything else?
Yeah, I think it was very well said by Yarema. Nothing more to add. We obviously don't know where this is heading. There is a sense, or there was a sense, I think, right after February 24th, that this is a temporary situation, that this will all end within a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and Russians will seize whatever they wanted to seize and move out, or partially move out, or and this will end. And I think even when we spoke with Yarema, a lot of people who are here, and including, I think, still your wife, they still don't really believe that this is a longer lasting situation, that this is something very temporary, that a lot of, I think maybe that's also a reason why people are here in Poland and they're not moving further, that they have a sense we need to be close because we will go back to our houses soon. I personally believe, not being a specialist, that this will last a longer period of time. Certainly not weeks. I think it's or months, and I hope it's not years.
Our plans from here, from California, is we have 3 groups that are coming to Poland this summer, scheduled to come. As you know, Szymon, this is the first 2 weeks of July. California judges, attorneys from Los Angeles County Bar Association, and also law students from this law school and actually law schools all over the United States. We hope to see you there. My wish is that we could visit you, Yarema, in Lviv during that time. That things,
it would be a great pleasure.
It would be wonderful to be able to do that. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time. We wish you the best, your families the best, and very much appreciate the information and the time that you took from us.
All right. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. It was a great pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.